Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Divorce Coach Diaries. So, today I want to talk to you about questions, questioning your thought and why this matters, because it does. So, really often we just assume that our thoughts are facts. We do this without even realizing it. It comes naturally to us. It is subconscious, unconscious, and often these are thoughts that we have so much practice believing and finding evidence that they're true. So we just accept them as facts. But the reality is, they're not facts, they're thoughts. And it's a really useful skill to start practicing questioning them. And these are questions that I ask myself probably more days than not. And it just helps me untangle a little bit thoughts that are not serving me or are even poisonous. Learning how to question your thoughts and having this become a habit will serve you. So here's what I mean. One question that I ask myself a lot is, how would we know if dot, dot, dot? So sometimes I find myself saying something like, gosh, I wish I was a better mom. And I catch myself now, and these are questions that I ask my clients as well, because a lot of my clients are single moms. So they'll say something like, I'm just not a good mom, or I wish I was a better mom, or I just want to be a better mom, or my kids would be better off if I was a better mom. And my response to this in myself and in my clients is, well, how would we know if you were a good mom? Or how would we know if you were a better mom? And when we ask ourselves a question like this, it helps tease out in our brain the quiet part that we don't usually say out loud. Things like, well, my kids would listen better if I was a better mom, or I must not be as good of a mom as I'm trying to be. Otherwise, my kids would listen to me better. So when your brain offers you something like that, question it back. Okay, well, so if you were a good mom, then your kids would listen all the time, right? And of course, that's not the case. Kids are their own people. And whether or not they listen has very little to do with the kind of mom you are. So, how would we know if you're a good mom? I've asked clients this before, and sometimes they say something like, well, I'm a good mom if my kids have enough food to eat. Okay, so the mom that is struggling to make ends meet, the mom who has left her abusive husband and is trying to rebuild hers and her kids' lives, who relies on school breakfast and school lunch so that she can feed her kids enough food. Is she not a good mom? If she struggles to feed them, she is trying her best, just like you are. And we could argue that that was the sign of a very good mom, to leave that abusive relationship and bring her kids to safety. So that can't be the sign of whether or not you're a good mom. What else? Okay, well, if I was a good mom, then my kids would listen when I tell them something. Really? How many times have you seen at the grocery store a mom that is doing everything that she can to get her kids to listen, and still they're grabbing candy off the aisles, or they're having a meltdown on the floor, or they keep asking for things and she keeps saying no, they're not listening, right? Is she not a good mom? So question your brain when it's offering you something that makes you feel terrible, like, I'm not a very good mom. Question it. how would we know? Because here's the answer to that for me. How do we know I'm a good mom? Because I decided on purpose that I am. And here's the crazy thing about this. When I've decided that I'm a good mom, I actually show up as a better mom. So here's another question that I ask myself a lot. What does that even mean? Maybe we're going to stick with some parenting things today because I think it's really useful and it's a place where a lot of my clients have a lot of sticky thoughts that they just think are facts and they're not. So, second question, what does that even mean? Okay. Maybe you find yourself thinking something that sounds so beautiful on the outside, like, I just want my kids to be successful. What does that even mean? What is successful? Because here's the thing. If you think a thought like that, I just want my kids to be successful, how do you feel? If you're like a lot of us, that thought immediately brings panic, anxiety, heaviness, because in our minds, we think it's up to us to make our kids successful or to set them up for success. You know, you hear all sorts of things like that. But the reality is, success has such a huge range of definitions and what that even looks like. And some people would say, I am successful because of all of these really difficult challenges that I've been through and all of these things that everybody else would call failures. Only because I went through all of those really hard things am I able to call myself successful right now. So I'm not saying don't wish for success for your kids. I'm just saying question your brain and what it's telling you success is. How would we even know they were successful? Again, you get to decide that. And I've already decided that my kids are going to be successful. And I have no idea what that success for them is going to look like. Because their success looks different than mine. And each one of their three personal brands of success is going to look nothing like any of their siblings. So just question, I want my kids to be successful. Well, how would we even know? Okay. A third question that I have trained myself to think really often and actually serves me really well and brings me a lot of peace is this. Why is this a problem for me? And here's an example of this. I have 3 kids. One of them, my middle child, is one of the most organized, cleanest, tidiest people that I have ever known. I never have to ask her if her room is clean or organized or tidy. In fact, I have to say sometimes, you know what? I think that drawer is pretty organized. Why don't you move on to something else? You don't need to do this anymore. And her sister is the complete opposite. I can ask her every single day, hey, is your room clean? And she'll say yes. But when I ask some follow-up questions and say, okay, so if I went upstairs right now, there would be no clothes on the floor, your bed would be made, there aren't papers shoved under your bed or under your desk or under your dresser. And then she says, oh, well, okay, let me go upstairs. And it took me a long time to not walk into her room and feel annoyed, feel anxious, feel frustrated because her room is a total mess. By my definition, her room is not clean. And I had to start asking myself on purpose before getting to those feelings, why is this a problem for me? Her room is messy. And I've decided that most days, this is not a problem for me. It's not a battle that I want to fight. It's her room. She lives in it. If she wants it messy most days, I don't actually care about that anymore because it's not a problem for me. Now, of course, wet towels, food, things like that, we're going to draw the line. That is not okay in my house, but just general mess, I don't actually care about it anymore. It is not a problem for me. The rest of my house is very tidy most of the time. But her room, if it's messy, I don't care. It is not a problem for me anymore. I never thought that I would be the person who lets her kid's room look like that. And you know what? That has brought me so much peace to not let this be a problem for me. She can keep her room how she wants it. My other daughter right next door keeps her room spick and span. You can eat off of it, and I can ask her to find something and she can go in 30 seconds later, comes down with it. That's not the case for her sister. However, it brings me peace not letting that be a problem. The last question that I ask myself and my kids and my clients regularly is, how do you know? Often we assume things about people that just aren't true, aren't even accurate, and they certainly don't serve us. So my daughter might come home and say, this person just doesn't even like me, or this teacher doesn't like me. Really? How do you know? Did you ask them? Well, no, I can just tell because, and we've built this whole big case and story for why we think that thought is true. And more often than not, we're wrong. We're wrong because people's behavior doesn't have anything to do with us. And it's so easy to just accept something like, well, that person doesn't like me. And it makes us feel terrible and it makes us show up weird and standoffish and ironically behaving in a way that makes us kind of unlikable. So if I see myself or my kids or my clients kind of falling into this loop of something like that, well, this person doesn't like me, or I'm just never going to be good at that. I don't like that food, or I'm terrible at that kind of activity. Really? How do you know? And often that question is just enough to help us untangle one of those beliefs. So once again, the questions that I ask myself and my clients and my kids regularly, but especially important for me, is how would we know if? 2, what does that even mean? 3, why is this a problem for me? And 4, how do you know? Try it out. Let me know what you think. Find me at Meg the Divorce Coach on Instagram, TikTok, and that's my website as well. I would love to talk to you more about any of these things we're talking about on the podcast. I have a free mini session right now called Save Your Sanity. And if that catches your eye, go to my website and find it and book a call. You won't regret it. Let's talk about it. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you next time.